even speech for that instance. I've had people when I speak to them, I tell them, okay, there's something wrong in your speech. The entire family says, no, that's how he has been, because you've got used to it. When a stranger listens to you and says, can you speak again? Can you come out? Yeah, come again.
Yeah, people are not able to understand.
Not able to understand what you're saying. Or sometimes, what I feel, when they're talking, I don't know which language is this. Sometimes you feel they're not talking in the language you're asking question. Then there's a red flag there. Hello, Namaste, Assalamu Alaikum, Sat Sri Akal. Dr. Naeem Sadiq, neurologist, neuropsychiatrist, founder and director of Plexus Neuro and Stem Cell Research Center.
Welcome to the Dr. Brain STEM podcast, your portal to understanding the complexities of neurological disorders. Today, with Plexus, we're focusing on the early signs, impacts, and the forefront of treatment advancements for ataxia. Together, we're committed to raising awareness, enhancing knowledge, and exploring how this condition affects the daily lives of patients and their families. Guiding us through today's discussion is Ms. Kanishka, a seasoned occupational therapist with a master's in occupational therapy and the head of the Department of Rehabilitation.
So today we're going to talk about ataxia. So what is ataxia?
Ataxia means loss of control. Loss of balance. You must have sat on a merry-go-round when you were a child.
Yeah.
You take a few spins, enjoy, have fun, scream. Then it stops, you get down. What happens?
Feel dizzy, difficulty to, take steps, difficulty in walking.
So you're not able to walk immediately as soon as you get down, right? You stumble a few steps and then
the head is spinning.
Head is spinning, and you're not able to, keep your feet the way they're supposed to. Right?
Yeah.
That is ataxia. You must have seen when you, go for a dinner, go to a restaurant, people there having a few drinks. After 2-3 drinks, somebody gets up and tries to walk to the loo. What do you notice there?
They stumble.
Yeah.
Somebody has to accompany them.
Exactly. And at times you find so many people have fallen down in the washroom. Right?
Yeah.
They lose control. They're trying to wash and
Yeah.
Okay. That's ataxia. Okay. Where you lose control, you're unable to balance yourself.
Okay. So this is about walking, right? So does it only affect the legs?
No, it affects your hands as well. Have you ever tried, once you wear your oven mitts, trying to hold the needle and thread it? Can you imagine that?
It's impossible.
Yeah. It's you're going everywhere. And at times
holding the needle itself is
exactly. And
impossible.
holding the thread is difficult.
Yeah.
And trying to thread that is in coordination in the hands. That is ataxia.
That means you cannot do precise movements.
Exactly.
Small
Precision is gone.
Precision
The control is not there. You want to brush. Your brush, you hit your gums.
Oh.
Right. And
Shaving,
try to shave, then you come back
yourself
like a wounded soldier.
Yeah.
Right from the battlefield.
Right.
So ataxia can affect your legs as well as hands also.
So what are the initial signs and symptoms of somebody who's on the verge of getting a diagnosis?
Right. So like I mentioned, one is the feet, the legs, where the walking balance is gone. Now, how does a person with ataxia walk? We call it a broad base. Normally, I don't know if you have ever noticed, normally we walk at the shoulders width. That's our stance generally.
Right.
But then when somebody has ataxia or when you want to lift something heavy, you broaden your stance, you spread your legs.
To gain balance and stability.
To gain balance and stability. That's exactly what happens in a person with ataxia, where to maintain the balance, your stance becomes wider. It's known as a broad-based gait. Gait is the way we walk, which I was talking in my previous podcast on Parkinson. When it comes to the trunk, The person may not be able to sit, on a chair or on a bench without a backrest, he'll be rocking, the trunk stability is gone. Then the third, the hands, the coordination in the hands, pouring water from a bottle in a cup and then drinking, or wearing your earrings, shaving, brushing, all these things are gone. Then comes the speech. Okay, I'm sure you must have heard a lot of people, the drunken speech is very famous. How you slur. That's because the cerebellum is affected. The speech becomes slurred, where you're unable to pronounce certain syllables. You're not able to.
Okay, so pronunciation
is
gets
gone.
affected.
Okay. And there might be some issues in swallowing, where a person tends to choke, and sometimes there could be an issue with to fixate your gaze, to look at you feel something, you're not able to fix your gaze. So this is a cluster of symptoms. Now initially what the person gets, it does not follow a specific pattern, but generally what is noticeable is the balance while walking.
Okay, so if I just have to repeat these symptoms, so one will be poor coordination, then difficulty in doing fine activities, like what, like brushing,
shaving,
buttoning. Okay, then having a broad base of support while walking.
Yeah.
And speech, there is unclear speech, deficits in swallowing, where somebody chokes or has difficulty in swallowing.
They keep coughing, when they have to swallow. Yeah.
And there is movement in the
disturbance.
eyes.
Correct. Yeah.
Could you tell us a little more about the cerebellum? You mentioned ataxia, the problem happens because of the cerebellum. So what is the cerebellum?
If you take the structure of a brain, now we have one major component, that we in the local parlance we say the big brain, that controls the motor movements, the strength and that stuff. Now behind there is a smaller brain, which we commonly call it as the chota damag, small brain, which is there in the rear part, that controls the balance, the coordination. The cerebellum is the most important organ which controls our balance and coordination. So when this gets affected, ataxia is the symptom which ensues.
So when such symptoms appear, whom should be seen? Which kind of doctor? And when to see the doctor?
Yeah, that's a question which is very, very, very important. Both the points. One, whom should you see? You should see a neurologist, a doctor who specializes in brain. Very important. The reason is, I will be answering the second part of your question. I have so many patients who come to me who have gone to a neurologist 2 years, 3 years after the initial symptom. Now, what were the initial symptoms? A little bit of stumbling. While you're walking, you just stumble and you fall. And a fall is not a simple thing. But for us humans, we take everything what God has given us for granted. Oh, it was just maybe the surface was uneven. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was not careful while walking. And then, or there are a lot of people who think there was a problem in the ankle. I've had a patient who went and got an ankle, a cast put there, whereas there was nothing wrong in the ankle and the problem was in the cerebellum, right? So there could be a mild loss of balance, instability, especially on uneven surfaces, and in a crowded gathering, like in your drawing room, you're walking, it's a marble floor or a tiled floor and it's fine and it's your known area. You go to a mall, you park the car and you're walking up the ramp on those cobblestones, or
maybe an unknown terrain.
An unknown terrain, you don't know, and suddenly there's one child coming from there and two people rushing from there, and you have to just hold on to the wall or catch somebody's shoulder. That's a red flag. that something is wrong. It's not supposed to happen. Yeah.
Your body is supposed to
Balance. Yes. We have that system in us where for any of these things we can, adjust, and, the suspension, like we have in the car, the balance, and there you are. But if this is happening, you should not neglect that. Or, for instance, your routine activities, like every day you are having a cut. The
Right.
problem is not in the razor. Problems in your hand, you're not noticing it. Or when you're eating, right, you're unable to, take from the spoon and eat.
You're
or
spilling.
You're spilling all over, you'll have to put a huge, not a napkin, maybe a towel there and sit so that, your clothes don't get
So it's
soiled.
all messy when you're eating.
Messy, or when you're trying to, cut a piece with the fork and the piece lands in the neighbor's plate. Okay. So,
Right.
all these things are common. But then if it happens one off, that's fine. But then it happens regularly. Repeatedly, or even speech for that instance. I've had people when I speak to them, I tell them, okay, there's something wrong in your speech. The entire family says, no, that's how he has been, because you've got used to it. When a stranger listens to you and says, can you speak again? Can you come out? Yeah, come again.
Yeah, people are not able to understand.
Not able to understand what you're saying. Or sometimes, what I feel, when they're talking, I don't know which language is this. Sometimes you feel they're not talking in the language you're asking question. Then there's a red flag there. You should see a doctor, you should see a neurologist. Let him examine you thoroughly, do all the proper investigations, come to a conclusion as to what is wrong with you, and guide you accordingly.
So, how does ataxia progress in its early stages?
Right. Ataxia is something which progresses, quite slow. Most of the ataxias, there are several types of ataxias. Most of the ataxias happen over a period of time. Initially, it takes quite some time. Like I mentioned, the initial symptom, very few people remember. And then somebody just goes back and say, yes, when we went on that vacation, you fell 2-3 times. Maybe that was the onset. So it takes over a period of time. The balance.
But fall is something that people remember.
Fall is something which they remember. But then you try to
give reasons to it.
Rationalize it with some kind of excuse.
Maybe it was slippery or...
Tiredness is something which is commonly heard. You were tired, or you were angry, you were emotionally disturbed, and things like these. Okay, so it progresses. The falls become more frequent. Okay, you're seeing, you're not, you're walking, your base is slightly broadening, and you're spilling things more and more often. Your speech is becoming this, progresses, and then it becomes obvious to even the family members, this person, something is wrong with his balance issues. So, and then you go to the subsequent stage. Okay, and then, and as it goes on, then, final thing is, patients are unable to, either sit or stand or do any of their day-to-day activities.
So, after we've spoken about the signs and symptoms and how the disease progresses in its early stages, can you tell us if there are any risk factors associated with ataxia?
There are several risk factors associated with ataxia. One of the most important and commonest one is the genetic factors. Since there are a lot of ataxias which are inherited, lot of ataxias. So family history, if somebody in the family has history of ataxia, then there are high chances I might be getting it. That's one. 2, chronic use of alcohol, known to produce ataxia. 3, deficiency in certain vitamins, especially vitamin B1, B6, B12, vitamin E. This could also result in cerebellar symptoms, ataxia. Then ataxia could also be part of a different metabolic disease, like for instance a thyroid disorder. It could be part of some other neurological disease, like part of multiple sclerosis or an MSA. And another very important cause of ataxia is a side effect of certain drugs, especially drugs which are used to treat seizures or epilepsy. Extremely common. And sometimes it could also be a part of paraneoplastic syndrome associated with some cancer. Now, these are some of the known risk factors which predispose an individual to ataxia.
So you said family history has a very big role.
Very big role.
So is there a particular type of ataxia which is associated with the strong family history?
Yeah, the commonest one is the SCA, which we call as spinocerebellar ataxia. There are several types in them. It is very common, and when patients come to me here and when I start plotting their family tree, you just see those black square, black circle, black square, black circle. So SCA is very strongly linked to genetics.
Okay.
Commonest one. Yeah, besides that, you have several other ataxias, where there is genetic thing, episodic ataxia, Friedreich's ataxia, ataxia telangiectasia, but SCA is by far the commonest one.
Right. And you also mentioned that drinking too much alcohol
Yes.
over a long period of time is associated with ataxia. So can you tell me this, what is this too much and what is this how long?
Oh. I wish there was an answer. Okay, it is very difficult to say how much is too much and how long is too long. It is very difficult because there are people who've been drinking for 20 years and nothing has happened. There are people who just started drinking in 6 months. Since 6 months they've started and problems have happened. So it is a toxin.
Right.
Okay, we know that much. Now, how much of toxin is good for you? How much is good for you? How much of toxin would you want to take?
None.
Exactly. Okay, that would be, as a healthcare professional and somebody who has been in this practice for so many decades, that's what I would say. Anything bad is bad. What is bad in 1 kilo is bad in 1 gram. Yeah, so something which is bad in a big amount is also bad in a small amount. So there's no way to predict. So best is not to have. And if you are having, and if you see there is one early sign of any of the 5 things which I mentioned, all your red flags are out and the bottle goes in.
Yeah, and the first thing probably you have to do is to talk to your family and find out if somebody has had ataxia.
Exactly. And yes, if somebody had and you're drinking, then it's an extra risk you're carrying.
So we've spoken about the common risk factors, which vary from something as simple as a vitamin deficiency to spinocerebellar ataxia, which is a genetic condition. So in your practice over so many years, for the past 36 years that you've been practicing, have you come across any diagnostic challenges for this condition in its early stage?
Yeah. In the early stage, the initial symptoms, like I've been talking, since the beginning of this conversation, it can be a challenge. Symptoms or whatever the patient presents can be so subtle that they might be neglected. So the challenge which, as a practitioner, as a healthcare professional, as a person who's been practicing for so many years, what I have been doing and what most of us should do is, one, most important is spend time with the patient and take a thorough history, because that gives you more than 50 to 60% of the diagnosis is done only by talking to the patient, finding out all the the issues where he's having the issues with the balance, finding out if similar things were there in the family or any other neurological illnesses, alcohol, these things. So first and foremost is a thorough history with the family background, and then comes a proper neurological examination. These two in most of the cases will give you the diagnosis. a complete neurological examination to find out if the cerebellum is working or not.
Right. So, how often have you come across such instances where a patient is misdiagnosed and is being treated for another condition?
Lots. Okay, there are so many times we have had here at Plexus. We have had cases which have been diagnosed as Parkinson's. The patient has been taking treatment. In fact, we had one patient who was hallucinating because of the side effect of the medication. Now, the first thing for me to do was wean him off, because we cannot stop the medication suddenly. It took us time to wean him off on the medication, bring him back to where he was, and then start planning treatment for his ataxia, cerebellar ataxia. It's quite common. It's quite common where it is diagnosed as something else. The other common one is anxiety. Okay, patients have been taking anxiolytics, and some people have just put on sleeping medicine, tranquilizers, sedatives, thinking it is a problem in the mind, not with the cerebellum. So it's quite common.
Okay. So, is there a simple test which can be done to test for incoordination? Something which can be simply done and it will give us a direction as to if the patient is having ataxia or if this is something else.
Right. See, two simple things come to my mind. These are things like, one is, I don't know if you have ever done it. If you have seen a pavement, where you have the pavers, and on the edge of that you see, they've painted black and yellow, patches. It's a thin, maybe about 3-4 inches. So you must have seen a lot of kids. I have done it, and a lot of kids do it. They try to walk, the toe to heel, walk one foot to the other. That's known as a tandem gait. So anyone could try to walk that way and see, is the balance right or wrong. Then the second one we do for the hand coordination is where we do the finger nose test, where, the finger outstretched. Let me check your cerebellum. Okay. Now close your eyes and touch the tip of your nose. Okay. Do this repeatedly. Yeah, good. Your right side is good. Let's check your left. Yeah. Okay, that's very important. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So far intact. Okay. Then we have one more test where we check for the coordination. Keep your one palm, left, and with the right do the alternating movement. I'm sure you must have played these games when you were a child, and do with the other hand.
So, what happens when somebody has ataxia? How do these tests change?
Okay, that's this. Okay. Now,
what if it's a subtle sign? What is a subtle deviation?
Subtle deviation will be where you have to if the person is very smart, intelligent, then he will control his movement. He knows he has to do that, and it's like I know I'm going to spill. Then I'll keep it very slowly there. There. Or like when the person walks the broad base, similar thing. Then okay. So I told you about walk, and these are the two simple tests which will reveal if the cerebellum is working or not.
So apart from these tests, is there anything else? Like genetic testing. What role does genetic testing play in ataxia?
Any patient with ataxia, it is mandatory to do a genetic test. Okay, now clinically you're diagnosed. Now there are other tests like a radiological MRI scan, and those things you will be doing. But then without a genetic test, your diagnosis is incomplete, because now if the person is proved to be carrying that gene, which means he or she is going to give it to the future generation.
For sure?
Yes. Okay. There is high possibility, some of the offsprings will have it, or they will be carrying it. They'll be giving it to the next one.
Right.
Okay. So you're propagating the disease. Yeah. So genetic test is important in that, to do the counseling regarding family planning. Okay. 2, about your own healthcare policies and whatever you need to do, healthcare planning,
Financially.
then financial planning, whatever investments, whatever you need to do. There's a huge thing
Amount
which
of
is
planning that goes
a
around.
lot of planning for the future. For the future is need, and the entire family, I have, I think it was about 3 or 4 months back, one patient, young, must be around in the 30s, had slight imbalance. They did an online consultation. I asked them to come over. I did the genetic test, found to be positive. So the first thing I asked them to do is, they had 3 children. Asked them to do the test for all 3. Small kids,
Right.
5, 3 and 2 or something like that, small little, nothing wrong with them. Even this lady had very subtle symptoms. Now out of 3, 2 were positive.
Oh.
One was not positive. Now we know that this 3-year-old child or this 1-year-old child is going to have the symptom later on.
Yeah.
So now they are aware of it. I counseled them, explained to them how to take care, what are the initial signs, the entire planning, and then how to try not to propagate it. Stop having children at that stage. Maybe adopt a child if you want to. So it has a lot of implications. So genetic test is very, very, very important.
So through this genetic testing, it's possible to stop this propagation.
It is. It's a beautiful thought. It's a beautiful thought. If every individual who has it decides, let me not marry. Even if I marry, let me not have a child of my own. Let me adopt. So you're stopping the propagation. 2, you're adopting and helping someone else as well. I wish, this podcast spreads this message. At least there will be one major disease which we can stop.
Yeah, and such a fatal one.
Such a fatal one, and such a disabling one. Disabling one because you see now, here your cognition is okay.
Yeah.
That's the worst part. When I don't know what I'm doing, it's fine. Right? Others are noticing that now here I know I can't do it. I'm trying my best to do, and I'm failing.
You have all the intent, but you just cannot execute.
I have the intent and I have the intellect, but I'm unable to execute it. That's the worst of the miseries.
Yeah. So how often in your practice have you come across such situations where you have to counsel these families, and there's some heavy gene pool where they are carrying this gene in their progeny, and you have to talk to them about it. So how easy or how difficult is it?
It is very difficult. It is very difficult, but I do. I do my bit because my job is to convey the message and explain to them. Spend a lot of time explaining how things could happen. But yes, it's something. See, for all living beings, to propagate, to procreate, and continuation of your and especially if you talk about the subcontinent, how you should have your varis and somebody to inherit your traits and your
it's a big deal.
It's a huge thing. It's a huge thing, and we are asking them to cut it off. Just imagine, how can you stop my generation, stop my race, that's how, that's what it ultimately boils down to. So it is a very, very sensitive issue. So but it depends. Sometimes I'm very brash and blunt about it. Sometimes I'll have to choose all kinds of backdoor entries and explain to them. It is but we have to do it.
Every doctor
should explain to them, okay, this is what, this is the time bomb. You're giving it to your child. The child is giving it to his or her child. It's a very important thing. So good you asked me this question.